Hello, hello, everyone. Wow, there's 500 people here. That's insane. I'm scrolling through all of your beautiful faces here, and geez Louise, loving these profile pics, guys. This is awesome. Um, I am here to chat about anything you want to chat about. I've gotten a lot of questions. There's been some amazing activity in the chat. I sort of knew that if we just built a server and like let it go wild, there was going to be some interesting things. And now suddenly my name is Joris. So that happened. Guess that's what happens on the internet. So Anyway, the rules of today are the following. I want to actually hear your voices for those who actually want to ask me questions. And with this, we can basically put you on stage and you can ask me questions. So if you are interested in asking a question, you can drop it in the questions channel, and then you have to make sure to raise your hand. Okay, there's already 14 people who have raised their hand. You can see it in the, oh, I see more. Now there's 20, now there's 25, now there's like 50. Geez. Okay, you have to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Jack, who is here with me, is going to call on you based on if you have asked a question in the questions tab and you've raised your hand. Jack will call on you and you will come forth and you will ask your question, and I will answer the question best I can. I've obviously not prepared for these questions because I'm going to be going in blind. So be easy on me, but don't be too easy. Um, and then yeah, I guess the reality of this too, with now 612 people listening and 72 people raising their hands, I'm not gonna be able to get to every single question. Okay, so just I'm gonna do my best in this hour, and we are going to get as far as we can. So thank you all for being here, and let's get started. So, Jack, who is our first question?
Hey everybody. Just to add on to Johnny's thing real quick, if you're in the questions text channel, if you react with a map emoji to a question that someone else posts that you want answered, that will stick out to me. So there's like a much more likely chance that you will get to ask your question. So if you see questions that you like, add a map emoji to them. So Johnny, I have a question from a user named Beige Duck. Um,
Cool
scrolling,
name, love it.
yeah, right. I'm scrolling through these. Beige Duck, if you're in here and you want to ask your question, raise your hand. We'll invite you up.
Fish duck.
Here's Beige Duck coming in hot.
Hey. So my question was that if you had to live outside of the US, but you couldn't go to any of the top three countries you'd most like to live in, what country would be number four?
Oh, wow. I love that very specific question of like, what's the fourth most desirable country for me? So not Switzerland, not Japan, uh, man, and like not what I'm trying to think of my third. I think, I have been very fascinated with and not Italy, so I can't go to Italy, Switzerland, or Japan. Um, and I had to live outside the United States. I am very interested in living in Sweden. I've been for the past like 2 months, I have been trying to get a stove from Sweden. I don't know if you guys have seen me on the internet, like asking like who lives in Sweden who can help me get this stove for my new house. But I've been like going down rabbit holes trying to figure out how to get this little wood stove that they don't ship to the US. And I've been like trying to talk to shipping people, and I finally got it across the Atlantic. I finally have it. But in the process, I like learned a lot about Sweden, and like I was looking at all these towns in Sweden, and I was like, man, Sweden is just a very wonderful place, it seems. I've been to Stockholm a couple of times, but I haven't been there enough. So that was a great question. I think Sweden or Argentina. All right, next question.
Amazing. User named Homeless. I see you've already raised your hand, so here's a heads up. You are being invited up.
Hey, homeless. Still connecting. Any minute now. Maybe connection problems. Let's give it a few
Oh,
more.
all right, homeless. We will invite you back
Calling
up
you
in a minute.
next.
Yes, we're gonna move it back. In the meantime, Johnny, you had some questions that got the most upvotes over the past few days. While I'm hunting for someone else in the questions channel, you want to answer one of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you slacked those to me, Jack. So, hey, Joris. In the last couple of years, the hate and distrust towards journalism has greatly increased. Many people stopped listening to journalists and reporters. What are your thoughts on this phenomenon? Okay. That is a great question. Journalism. Holy smokes. Yeah, so there's a giant distrust in not just journalism, but like all authoritative institutions. And at the same time, there's also this reality of news being like worse and worse, like way more entertainment, at least here in the US. I can't speak for like what news looks like in Slovakia, but like at least here in the US, uh, it's like a decline of information and news. And so I think there's a real precedent for this. I think it's actually I've felt less connected to journalists and like sort of like, who are you? Like, why are you the ones who are like telling me what to think? Uh, However, at the same time, there are journalists who are still doing such important work. Like at the same time as this all is happening, I also have developed a new appreciation for journalism and the fact that like if journalists don't do it, like who will? Who's gonna like actually look at these issues and actually like talk about them and air them out? So my mind goes in two directions on this, but I think we are in the era of truthlessness, and I think it is going to get worse before it gets better. Is the reality is like the truth? It doesn't matter, and facts don't matter, and people are like, even though the facts say this, I feel this, and therefore I don't believe the facts. That's only I think that's going to get worse. And yet, I think the journalists who are doing the hardcore, real journalism, not just entertainment or clickbait, like, are very important and should continue to do their work. So, anyway, that was sort of a non-answer, but those are my thoughts. Next question, Jack. You have something for me?
Amazing. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of people ask the same question, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask it for them. Are
Okay.
you still planning on making a How the US Stole the Philippines video?
Oh, wow, that is great timing. Just yesterday, Jack and I said, "Hey, we should make a how the U.S. stole the Philippines video." So, and I was like, "Jack, go research this and let's talk about it in a couple of days." More and more, my process is uh, coming into a story once I've had someone help research it. I mean, for my whole career, basically, been like a one man band. The past year, I've really like started to bring other people in to help me out. Jack being one of them, and yeah, how the U.S. Stole the Philippines is like in full production and will be made in the next 2 weeks. So I'm very excited to learn more about that.
Love it. Okay, Addison737. We are going to invite you up to the stage if you raise your hand.
Addison, raise your hand, and if not, make sure we get back to homeless. I want homeless to be able to have another chance to connect. Hey, Addison.
Hey there. What was it like working for NATO?
Ooh, NATO. Surprisingly boring. Here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you my thoughts on working for the Foreign Service and for the U.S. government in these sort of cool, sexy jobs. Um, so for those who don't know, NATO is like the military alliance from like Europe and the United States, and they have headquarters in Brussels. I worked for NATO for a semester of college as an intern, and thinking that it was going to be like, I don't know, tanks everywhere, and I would be like talking to military people and like doing military things. I don't know, like diplomacy meets like geo strategy. It wasn't that. It was a lot of boring meetings, really like esoteric policy discussions and meetings. And it's they do great work. They're great institution, but like I wanted to be I wanted to be a NATO person or like a foreign service officer, a diplomat. But being there in NATO, I was like, oh my gosh, this is not nearly as sexy as I thought it was. Like I thought this was going to be so mind, like invigorating, and it wasn't. And that's when it started to chip away at me. I was like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this. I want to like make videos. And like so I kept my international relations education up, but NATO was like the first chip in the armor where I was like, this actually isn't as cool as I thought. Though there were some really cool moments, like sitting there with all these different countries in a big room. And there was one day where my boss was like, had to leave for something else. So I was like the representative of the United States, like in this roundtable discussion. It was like about like disaster preparedness. Like it wasn't anything like super cool, but I was like the representative of the US sitting there with like the United States like plaque in front of me with like a little microphone. I didn't say anything, but at least I was there, and that was kind of fun. And I had a security clearance, which allowed me to go into these bases, which was kind of fun. So there were definitely upsides, but I learned what I didn't want to do by working at NATO as opposed to what I did want to do, which is thank goodness. Thank goodness I'm not a foreign service officer and I make videos instead.
It's, we're gonna invite Homeless back up for another try.
All
But
right, homeless. I believe in your
On-
connection.
on deck is a user named Mono who has a question. So Mono,
Mono, get that hand raised,
Ready.
and homeless. Let's get this connection going. I'm really curious about your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we did it. Hey,
Let's
homeless.
go. Okay, so here's my question. Out of all the different Vox borders and different stories that you have told, what are the most influential to you as a person or to you as your career? This could be from your diet, the Indian border. I love what you do and always interested. Thanks so much.
Oh my gosh, great question. Thanks for the enthusiasm. So yeah, I've done a lot of stories, and each of them has left a different mark on me as a person and on my perspective. Oh, where to start, man? This is a big question. So the first one that crops out is like the one I think about once a week. Like there's a story I think about once a week because of the experience. Um, it was Nepal so I told this fixer in Nepal. So a fixer is like someone who like helps you figure stuff out on the ground. Like when I'm like going to Nepal, I need a fixer to like how do I get to this border? How is it safe? All this stuff. I get in touch with this fixer and I'm like, hey, I need to get up to the border of China and Nepal and back and flying back to Washington D.C. in 7 days. And he was like, literally impossible. Like you can't even get to that elevation, which is like 15,000 feet. 5,000 meters. You can't even get to the elevation in that speed like safely because like you have to go up elevation. And I was like, no, I have to, because like my son was starting school. And I like had to be back because I felt I was such that whole summer I'd been filming Borders and I wasn't around, and like I felt really guilty about it. So I was like, I cannot leave my family. So I fly to. So he was like, listen, I will as soon as you land in Kathmandu, we will fly you to one town and then we'll helicopter you to another one, and then you'll take a jeep. Well, I did fly to that first town, but flying to the second town, there was fog like over the mountain, and they're like, no, no helicopters, no anything. Like you have to drive. But the fixer was like, we will get you there. So he's like, hire a jeep. So like hires a jeep, and we drive for 12 hours just to get to the foot of the Himalayas. Like so, it's like 12 hours of like bumpy driving, and then he's like, all right, we're now in this town. We have like we're gonna sleep here, and then it's like another 15 hours of driving tomorrow to like get you up into the mountains. And I was like, holy crap. So it was 15 hours of the bumpiest. And I don't bumpy like you can't even imagine. Like the car is like shaking back and forth like the whole time. And while I was on this trip, I was editing the Arctic episode of Borders, which was episode 2. I was animating all the maps. So I was sitting there with my laptop and all of these power chart like banks that were like charging my laptop. Like I had like 5 power banks so I could like have constant power. And I was like in After Effects like not even able to press the buttons on my keyboard because it was so shaky. I would have to like look down. I'm like, I need to press like L, and I would like gear up to press it. Then I would like go down and barely press it, and like each keystroke was incredibly arduous. Anyway, I made it all the way to the border after like 3 days of flying and driving, and it was like a different world. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm here. Like I'm here in this beautiful place. and talking to these farmers, these yak herders, nomadic people. That it was otherworldly for me. I was like, what is my life? Like, what is happening right now? So that I would say that has left the biggest imprint. And then I would say the one that left another really big imprint on me was Haiti, Dominican Republic. Just being in this place, seeing these two countries, how they were treated differently by colonial powers, and how that basically created their destiny. It just was like, wow, like colonialism, like literally shaped our world. Like that is just like our entire world was shaped by like Europeans between the end of the 1400s and like the 1800s. Like that is our entire world, and that was pretty intense for me to like really see that in the human version of that. So those are two amazing stories that really left a mark on me. Good question.
Amazing. Okay, Mono, you are up. Just have to say, we have so many requests to speak that
Okay, I'm gonna be way quicker.
freezing.
Sorry, I'm gonna be
No. My literal tab of the request keeps freezing. So many people are entering.
gosh.
Okay, Mono, you are invited up.
Not seen Mono onto the stage.
Hmm.
In the
Okay.
meantime, let's keep getting Mono. I'm gonna answer another one.
Great.
How do you do your research? Oh, here comes Mono.
Sorry, I forgot to accept it.
No problem. Hey, Mono.
Hello. With the US now opening, are you planning on traveling for any brand new videos?
Yes. Ooh, I'm excited about this. So, guys, I want to like bring back Borders, but not Borders. Like what I was doing at Vox was called Borders, but it was basically Johnny travels and tells stories. Sometimes around border regions. I want to do that same thing, but on a whole new level. And I'm starting in September. So I'm going to Cyprus the first week of September, and I am going to tell 4 or 5 stories from Cyprus. And unlike last time, where I was sort of one man banding, I am hiring a cinematographer. I'm like getting Tom Fox to like compose custom music. Jack is coming with me to help shoot. Like it's gonna be like a production. The channel's grown so much that I can actually do that. I can get a sponsor, like make that happen, and it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be like I want it to be like you watch this and you're like, this is head and shoulders above anything I've ever seen on the channel and on the internet. So yeah, I'm absolutely gonna start traveling again, making videos, and they're gonna be the best videos you've ever seen. So just get ready for that. I've been stuck in the office for the past year and a half, and that's where a lot of you have come into my world, I think. Um, but I'm going back to my roots of getting out in the field to tell stories. Thanks for your question.
Amazing. Okay, Duckman, you are. You should raise your hand.
And you should accept.
You should accept it. That's right.
That's it.
Let's see, Duckman. I'm looking for your name.
While you're
There
getting
you are.
Duckman, I'm gonna.
Duckman's on his way up.
Oh, he's on his way up. Okay.
Yep.
Hey there, Duckman.
Hi. The question I was gonna ask was, how do you do so much research and such extensive research on such diverse topics?
Yeah.
Is the
So-
question I'm gonna ask.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
a great question, and it gets to the other question that's been asked a lot, which is like, how do you go about researching? The answer, especially with the diversity of the topics, is just genuine curiosity. There's a lot of I get pitched on a lot of stories that I'm just like, this is interesting, but like I'm not stoked on it. Like for some reason, I'm not like super interested in it. But then there's some topics like what happens to your body in cold water, where I'm like, yeah, what does happen to your body in cold water? And I'm just like fascinated by it. And I start to just honestly, research is not like I don't have some secret place I go for research. What I do is I literally read Wikipedia articles and then I go into the sources and I read the original sources. I read news articles, and you're talking to a guy with like deep dyslexia. Like I'm not very good at reading. And so like reading is not easy for me. I'll go through and I'll scan for information. and I will let my curiosity guide. If there's something that's like, oh shit, that's interesting, I'll write that down. I'll be like, this was interesting when I learned it for the first time. And probably be my audience, when they learn this for the first time, it'll be interesting. Like the fact that your veins are like muscles and they flex back and forth to send blood to your extremities or to your heart, depending on if you're hot or cold. Like learning that was mind blowing to me. And I was like, I'm going to make an entire video just about that process. So, and then, as I mentioned, more and more, I've been when there's a topic that I'm interested in, I now have a growing team of people, Jack being one of them, who I asked to go do some research and to like go get all the facts, to go find the timelines of how things are like with Cyprus. I'm having Jack just like construct an entire timeline of like how Cyprus came to be the way it is. More and more, and same with editing. I used to edit every one of my videos, and now I don't. You know, it's like I'm in Premiere right now for this Iceland video, like, but I'm rarely in Premiere these days. I'm usually giving tons of notes and feedback and directing. But more and more, I'm trying to make more ambitious work, and that means bringing more people in. But the answer is just like go down the rabbit hole, man. Like read a Wikipedia article and ask questions like, well, why did that happen? Or I don't understand this. I'm gonna keep going until I really understand it. That's like a different kind of research than just like casually breezing over something. Okay, I got to be quicker on these answers, man. I'm not as concise as I'd like to be.
Okay, Nick the Prick.
Nick the Prick.
Feel weird calling you that, but you are up. I'm waiting on you to raise your hand.
If anyone wants to ask a question, make sure that your hand is raised. If you don't want to ask a question, then we are going to assume you don't. If your hand is not raised, we will assume that you don't want to ask a question. So maybe Nick the Prick doesn't want to ask a question, which is totally fine.
That would be totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tough. Nick, I'm not seeing you. Johnny, do you have another question?
I have some other ones. So what's your advice for young people who feel like the world is becoming a worse place by the day? How do you perceive it? And this is from Don Julio. That's a great question. And I'll just say this. I will say this. Throughout all of human history, there has been an impulse by humans to think that this is it. Like, whoa, things are really coming to an end. Like, oh, Nick the Prick.
Hello, how are you?
Nick, I'm gonna leave you muted for a hot second.
Yeah, let me just finish this and then I'll bring you in. So, my thing is to say this is nothing new. Like there have been like doomsday predictions forever, and this is just the way humans are. Like they want to think that this is the craziest time. Now, there are real unprecedented things happening in our world right now, and there are challenges, but with time things happen, and sometimes they have to happen in a with tension and conflict. But like with time, I believe that some of the wrongs that are being done will progress and be and work themselves out. I really believe that. I think that the arc of history trends towards a better, more peaceful world. That is what we've seen. If you lived in 1830, your life would be miserable. You know, like you would spend your life like scavenging for food and like staving off like diseases all of the time, and you would live until you're 47. You know, like it'd probably be sent off to war. You know, as a young person, like our world is better than it's ever been. We're going through a really intense phase of pandemic and political revolutions that are happening under the surface, but like things trend towards being better. I really feel that. Okay, Nick the Prick, you're up.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing
so
good.
my
Good to hear from you.
so my question is, what's a video idea that you would love to do but don't have the resources to make it happen?
Ooh, it's a great question, man. I want to do. Man, I have a couple of these. One of them is I want to do like an epic China road trip. Like I would love to spend like 4 weeks going all throughout China, and that's not really resources, that's more like time and availability, and like is that even possible? But like that's one that's I want to do like 4 weeks in China and like report on everything I see in China and actually get a real understanding of China, because I feel like everything I know about China is based on what I hear from leaders and the news, and like I don't trust any of it. I want to like see what China's actually like, and see it. I feel like it's like during the Cold War, you knew nothing about the Soviets if you were in the West, and Soviets knew nothing about America in like the real deal, how people actually live, because it was all so subject to propaganda. That's one. The other one I want to do is like an underwater. Like I would love to do like a deep sea borders, like or deep sea like mapping the deep sea or something, and like going deep in the ocean is incredibly expensive and resource intensive, and like I don't think I'll ever do like be able to do that to a serious degree, but I am absolutely fascinated by like the deep ocean and how little we know about it, and I would love to make some like hardcore explainer videos about the ocean with some like submarine or something. So those are a couple ideas.
Amazing. Okay, Doge Master, you are being
Doge
invited up.
Master. Doge
Uh,
Master, love that thumbnail. How's it going?
Thank you. I would just like to ask what your favorite book is.
Oh, favorite book. Man, okay. I've got a couple favorite books. Oh man, okay. It depends the genre, because I feel like fiction books are a totally different genre from like learning books, and like I can't, I have to choose one for each. In terms of fiction books, I have to say, or sorry, in terms of like learning books, Sapiens is a book that I read over the course of a year. I just sort of chipped away at it on audio, and it really changed my life. Like Sapiens by Yuval Harari changed my life, because I now see me as a human in the context of like everything that has happened before me, and it makes me feel like, oh, I'm just a blip on this freaking map. Like nothing matters, and that's okay. So that's a big one. In terms of fiction books, I love the book East of Eden by John Steinbeck. When I was at NATO, actually in 2010, and many years ago, I got to travel sort of for the first time. I didn't grow up traveling. I grew up like in a small town in Oregon, like looking at maps and like not really knowing what the world really was. I didn't even understand where Europe was until I was like 17. Like I'm not kidding. Um, and so when I went to Europe, when I was like 21, and I was traveling through Europe, and I was just like I was just my brain was being opened to the magic of travel. I was like I was reading East of Eden, and it just was so beautiful, and I was slowly reading through it because I'm terrible at reading, but like I just loved the story, and the writing is so plain and not too fluffy, and I really like it. Yeah. So
Love it.
East of Eden.
Okay, Evan Crummel, the second part of your question is super juicy, but I'm not able to invite you up for some reason, so I'm going to ask it on your behalf. How did you meet Tom Fox, and how did that lead to the audio-visual pairing you have now, Johnny?
Oh man, Tom Fox, dude. Tom Fox is an undiscovered just magician. Like he makes magic. And I met Tom Fox actually because Tom Fox is my wife's cousin, Izzy's cousin. Is as everyone knows her. I call her Izzy. Izzy's cousin is Tom Fox. And when Izzy was first getting into YouTube, Izzy and Tom were sort of chatting. I didn't know Tom super well at the time, and Tom was like, Tom made a song for her vlog, and I didn't know anything about this, but I was watching the cut of her vlog, and I was like, man, this music is awesome. Was this like Epidemic Sound or Music Bed? And she was like, no, my cousin made it, and I was like, what? So, and she goes, and he made it on his girlfriend's laptop using GarageBand, like this simple music production software. And I was like, what? And so I immediately was like, this is something special. So I was like, Tom, I will. Tom was like delivering pizza at the time. I was like, Tom, I will buy you a laptop. I will buy you Logic Pro. I will get you whatever gear you need to like get serious about this if in return you make music for me. And I will train you how to make music for my videos. And he was like, okay. And I was sort of thinking, like, I've sort of helped people out before like this, where I like take them under my wing and they sort of like peter out after like four weeks or something. I was like, Tom, I was taking a bet. I was like, I'm sort of buying a laptop for this guy. After a few weeks, he was like more into it than ever. He was like taking training classes, and he was delivering stuff to me, and I was giving him like hardcore notes. I was like, dude, this doesn't work. This blah blah blah. And I started to like hardcore give him feedback. He started to, and he could take it. And so months went by of him making music, and he just started making music, and more. I started using his music instead of like Music Bed, and then he just kept exploding. So now it's been, I guess that was May 2018. And so it's been 3 years of him and I just collabing, and he's become amazing. And now he makes music for like Nathaniel Drew and Drew Binsky and Yes Theory and like all these like top dogs. And he's just so cool. And we still have that arrangement going. Though now when I have like a big gig or something, I'll pay him for his music. But like we still have this like trade going back and forth. And he's just amazing. I'm texting with him right now actually about some old track that I dug up that I'm putting in this Iceland video. Oh, man, thanks for asking. That was good.
Amazing. Okay, we have two short questions that I'm going to ask on behalf of these individuals. One, what are your thoughts on Dogecoin? Two, which was the last shampoo that you used?
Oh man. Okay. Those are two very interesting questions that I guess I've made videos kind of about both. Um so shampoo. The last shampoo I used was some like anti-dandruff like tea tree oil. And it was like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more. I don't know. And I'm so glad my hair does not turn into a puffball anymore. And listen, I get this question a lot, which is what do you do with your hair if you don't shampoo it? The answer is I just wash it with like hot water. And I sort of like, I don't know, like rough it up a little bit to like stimulate the scalp, I guess, or something. But nothing. I do nothing to it. Well, does it smell bad? No, it doesn't smell bad. I don't know why. I wash it with water. Like it's fine. So maybe we just are so used to our hair having to smell like freaking chemical flowers that like we think that if it just smells like normal hair that it smells bad. But anyway, Dogecoin, I have no idea other than like there are so many jokey, memey financial things happening right now that are real because enough people think they're real. And that's literally our entire financial system. If enough people are on board, the mass psychology of humans is like, well, we value this and now there's money in it. So I believe that we are seeing a breakdown of traditional valuing systems. Dogecoin, NFTs, meme stocks, like GameStop, AMC are all an expression of like it's like a disruption in like how we used to value things, and it's almost like shining a light on how arbitrary it can be. And so I think we will see a shift in some way, I don't know what it's going to be, of like, oh, like institutions don't have to value things anymore. Like we're going to find decentralized ways of doing it. And Dogecoin is just one of many expressions. I think in 5 years, no one will remember Dogecoins in the same way that we don't remember CryptoKitties today. CryptoKitties were huge a couple years ago. Now they're worth like $2. I think these are all just like fun expressions that come and go. But I don't know, dude. I don't have a hot take on this. Like, this is not my wheelhouse. So this is just me guessing and pontificating.
Yeah. Here is your wheelhouse. Not Fool D has a question about international relations. So
Here we go.
Welcomed up.
I'm ready.
Hello. Can you
Hey
hear
there.
me?
Yeah, I hear you great. How's it going?
It's all good, thank you. I want to know, when do you have a realization to get degree in international relations? So was it a sudden process, or maybe it come from childhood, or I don't know.
That's a good question. The true story here is that I was a film major. I was really into like film, and then I went to the film program at Brigham Young University, and I was like, man, this is not like they don't even let you hold a camera until like fourth year, and I was like, this is not what I want to do. So I actually then went on a Mormon mission for 2 years when I was 19, and I was on a bus in Tijuana, Mexico, looking at a catalog of the different degrees, like the different things you could study at BYU, and I saw international relations, and I was like, "That looks cool" because it says international, and I want to travel. Like that was basically it. I was like, I like international things. I had no idea what international relations was. I just knew that it had the word international. And that's why I chose it. And then when I got into it, I was like, oh, I like thinking about countries and why countries behave the way they do and why power works with different countries and why conflict happens. And so it was sort of accidental, but I ended up enjoying it. And then that's why I went on and got a master's degree in conflict resolution. Because of all the things I loved about international relations, it was always the borders, the lines that I was like, man, I'm obsessed with this, like lines. And like, why do we draw these lines and what happens at the lines? And like, that's conflict. Like, we draw borders because of conflict. And so I just have always felt, I don't know where it comes from. I think my time in Mexico maybe contributes to that. But I've always been drawn to maps. And I think I just naturally enjoyed that. And luckily, I've been able to turn it into a job that allows me to do film and international relations.
Okay, Johnny, this question is so hypothetical that I've been avoiding it, but people have
Oh.
spoken and keep upvoting it. So,
Oh,
the
gosh.
Avioli, I'm inviting you up.
Oh, no.
Hey, hey Johnny, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's very good, thanks. Yeah, so my question was like, it's a two-parter, but just I'm going to ask the first part. Like, the World War II was a great tragedy, but what would have happened if Hitler had, invaded UK rather than USSR? And same with Pearl Harbor, like, would the trajectory of the war change, like something, different had happened?
Man, these are questions in terms of grand strategy and uh, history. I'm not the best versed in this, so I can't give a super educated view on how things could have changed or been different. I do know that if the U.S. hadn't gotten involved because of Pearl Harbor, things obviously would have gone quite differently. I think the U.S. in the Pacific obviously completely changed things, and then with the atom bomb, that obviously changed things as well. But I visited Normandy a few years ago, northern France, the place where D-Day happened, where troops from the UK and the US hit the beaches to take France back from the Nazis. And when I captured the scale of how much power was implemented to make that happen, it really made me realize how important the US was as an alliance, in the alliance. Now, had Hitler put all of his forces to the west instead of going east, yeah, that probably would have changed things. That probably would have changed things. I don't know to what extent though, and I would love to know more. In fact, Iz and I were listening to a podcast about World War II, and we're like, man, we need to know more about this. Like, this was the biggest war in human history, and I feel like I don't understand it like enough, like to be able to answer a detailed question like that. My dream is actually to make a map splainer that isn't super detailed. Like there's a bunch of hyper detailed every year of World War II, but a broad explainer of like here's all the big things that happened in World War II with like all the big players. You have like the Nazi regime, you have like the Soviets, and then you have like Churchill, then you have like the US and France. And then you have, like how they're all playing around Japan. invades China, like that whole thing. I would love to do a map explainer that like really unpacks that. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know because I'm close to pulling the trigger on something like that because it's really interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
my non-answer.
South Claus, you're being invited up, and Timmy, you are on deck after this.
Okay, South Claus.
Hi.
Hey there. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hey, Johnny and Jack. Yeah, I love your content, and I have for a long time. So,
Thank you.
yeah, my question is about sort of the video journalism industry and sort of moving, like, how viable and possible do you think it is for someone with a non-journalism background who hasn't sort of studied it properly, quote unquote? I suppose you haven't either, really, because you did filmmaking. But how possible is it to kind of get from that to where you got to with like working with these organizations like NYT and Vox and stuff like that? Like I have a software background, but I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I've done all sorts over the years, and I've always kind of had this inkling in the back of my mind of with video journalism and the kind of stuff you do. So I'm just wondering, like, your thoughts on like, you know, how mobile it is to go from, you know, one career
Yes.
to
You know, and that's a great question. And the answer, I wish I had a universalized theory on this. However, I have a couple of thoughts, which is what got me into Vox wasn't that I was a journalist or that I had, even in my international relations background, like I got into Vox because I could animate. I taught myself animation and I had this hard skill that like they wanted. And and in fact, everyone I know, like who got into Vox sort of without a traditional journalism background had that. Like Alvin, my colleague Alvin was a data scientist, and like he had like the data and mapping skills, and like he got in to do that for Vox, and then he sort of the journalism came. Um, I think that hard skills and expertise in those skills is undervalued in terms of like how important that is, especially in universities. Like they don't really train people in that, and they're not really good at training people in that. So I'm all about like, can you demonstrate that you can use your technical skills for storytelling and start to practice? Because I was practicing a bunch. And if I show you that work from the early days, is garbage. But like at least I was taking my technical skills and trying to communicate something. And Vox saw that and they're like, oh, this guy's good at animating. He can use it to kind of explain things. But I wasn't writing anything. I didn't have any angles on anything. I was just animating what other people were writing. But in that process, I learned the art of journalism. And then I started writing and started to get cut down by Joss Fong, who would tell me all of the time that my scripts were garbage, and they were. And I learned a ton from having her give me feedback. But again, I led with that hard skill and this sort of seed that like this could be something bigger if it gets nurtured. And Vox saw that. And I really believe that there are a lot of, Now This or other sort of digital first publications that like are open to seeing talented people who have something to say, as long as they have a hard skill to like come in first. Because there's a million journalists who can write. It's like who has the hard skill to take interesting topics and turn them into something more than just writing. And I think that was the differentiator for me. So anyway, that's my answer. I think it's quite mobile if you're willing to put in the work of of doing a bunch of practice without getting paid and without anyone seeing it, and it's sort of garbage. Like I did that for years. It's very discouraging, but it's the way I got into my foot in the door.
Hey, Timmy, you are welcome on the stage.
Hi,
Hey
Johnny.
Timmy, or hey Anakin.
Hi, Johnny. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I've been really getting to your videos. They're really intriguing and interesting. And my question to you is, do you have any advice on what news sources are trustworthy? I'm sure we've all been told not to listen to Fox News or CNN or etc. And how do you find news sources that are unbiased and trustworthy and informative?
Yeah. So I'll first say I don't believe in the idea of unbiased. I think every single news organization has something to say and has an angle on what they're saying. It's just a matter of how well they hide it And yeah, so that's my big thing. Every news organization will as long as it's being written by a human being, has some built-in biases, and I don't think that's bad. I think that's actually okay, as long as the biases are presented in an intelligent and generous way. So let me explain what I mean. I read The Economist. It's a weekly publication based in Britain, but they cover stuff all around the world. They have an angle. The Economist has an angle. They're sort of classical liberals. They believe in free markets, but they believe in like hardcore human rights and freedom for everyone. And so they'll sort of sprinkle that in here and there, but they also make their arguments so clear and so evidence based that you're like, okay, like you're laying it out on the table. Like you're telling me what you believe or what you think, but you're also laying out the facts, and I'm learning. And even if I disagree with the way that you, like where you ended up, I now have all the facts and I feel like I'm more informed. I'm learning how to think critically about the world. So The Economist is to me the best publication there is for learning about how the world works. They don't do breaking news. They don't do homicide in Texas where like most cable news love or local news loves to sort of indulge like really terrible stories that like are very rare but like are sort of sensational. They don't do any of that. They teach you about the world through news. And then of course investigative journalistic outlets like ProPublica are really solid for teaching you about the world because they do these deep investigations into things. I still read Vox in the name of like getting explainer, like their explainer stuff is really good. It's like I need to know about the new COVID variant. I'm gonna go to Vox because I know they're gonna like break it down. And then of course the New York Times I think does a good job of laying out the news in sort of a traditional way. The Wall Street Journal, like all these sort of legacy publications. But my problem with them isn't that they're biased or whatever. It's that they are like just kind of boring. Like I don't learn about the world as much. I sort of just I don't know. It feels very legacy to me. I want someone to teach me in a way, like in the way that I do on the channel. Like I want someone to like give me some juicy new information about how I can understand the world and not just report that a condo building fell down in Miami. And it's like that's important, but it's like that doesn't teach me about the world that a condo building fell down in Miami. Like I don't just spend every day reading the headlines about the search for missing bodies. Am I insensitive? No. Like that's not my local, it doesn't actually pertain to me in my life. That's a big issue. But because it's a big issue, does that mean I need to know about it all the time? Like I don't think so. Like I need to learn about like healthcare and like healthcare policy and education policy and whether or not taxes are going up and like why that matters and what makes a better society. And I feel like there are publications who do that better than others. I love The Economist. It takes a while, and I listen to it. I don't read it. I listen to it on the app, and I love it. I think it's just really good. That's my thoughts on news. Thanks for the question.
Okay, Lorne, you have a question. You've been invited up.
And Jack, can we get whoever's on deck too, just so that they're ready to dive in? I want to make sure we get as many people in this last 11 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. Lauren, let's actually Lauren's ready. Okay, go for
Lauren's
it. Lauren.
ready.
So I actually had two questions. The first one was, so if you had to pick one person that you think that everybody in the world should learn about, who would you pick? And out of Mao Zedong, Hitler, and Stalin, who do you think like caused the most impact in terms of like destruction or like up till today? Yeah.
Oh, wow. That second one is I'm scared to answer. Who should everyone learn about? This is a hard one to answer because I tend to believe that the way that we write history is we deify, we turn these people, these George Washingtons of the world, into gods. And we sort of create narratives around them that like make them these stalwart people who did amazing things. And they did. They did. And yet I don't feel like it's useful to know Thomas Jefferson's morning routine because we can emulate him. Like it's just that just seems like a way that's like a great thing for like a BuzzFeed post, but like it's not actually useful. So that's my way of saying like I'm sort of averse to learning about figures and like being and being like and like emulating them. However, I believe everyone needs to, at least here in the US and maybe around the world, but I believe Teddy Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, who was the president of the United States, but before he was the president, he was a undersecretary of the Navy. He was a figure who left a huge imprint on the United States, for better and for worse. And he's the exact type of figure that like represents what one individual can do to leave their mark. Again, good and bad. He was obsessed with war. He loved war. In fact, the Philippines episode that we're working on is probably going to mention him. He loved war. He like wanted the U.S. to go to war with Cuba, but he also loved conservancy. Like he wanted like national parks, and he like loved nature. He loved like hunting, you know. And he's just a really interesting character. And he bullied the media to do what he wanted them to say, and like just an interesting guy. Like super interesting guy. So I think everyone should learn about Theodore Roosevelt to understand the fabric of American war loving, like our legacy of loving war as a country, and our legacy of conservancy, our love for national parks and for conserving public lands. Okay, so there's that. In terms of Mao and Stalin and Hitler, man, I mean, Mao is the only. Wow, I don't know. I would say Hitler obviously had a horrendous impact, but you go to Germany today and it's like Germany's the leader of the freaking world in terms of like in terms of happiness, productivity, like restfulness for their workers, rights, healthcare, like economics, and like sustainability. They figured it out and they've like turned around. So I don't think Hitler's legacy goes on in any salient way other than like neo-Nazis and whatever, like a small subset. Mao, on the other hand, has a legacy that like is still very alive in terms of the revolution he created. I don't know enough about China to be able to like really be able to assert that, but like I would say Mao, he did something huge, and the number of people's lives he affected and the fabric of that country that he changed is still like very alive and well today in China. I don't know. I'm hesitant to really come down on that with a firm answer, but that's sort of my my answer to that question. Thank you, Lauren.
Okay, Carl, I'm inviting you up. When you get up here, if you would mute your mic, that'd be great until Johnny answers this question, which the asker is unable to join the stage. Johnny, using the McDonald's video as an example, have you ever thought about making a follow-up video to see if anything changes as a result?
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I haven't. I mean, I've thought about doing like a little funny like where McDonald's like did some, but not an investigation. But I probably should. I should probably do like like McDonald's ice cream makers 6 months later. That's a great idea. Thanks for the suggestion.
Okay, Carl, are you on your way up? Does not look like it.
Okay, next we've got 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay, here we go. The Bad Breeds. Let's get you up here.
Yeah.
Hey there.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. How's it going?
It's fine. Thank you for answering to my question. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you great. Go ahead and ask your question. I'm ready for it.
Okay, I just want to ask one thing. Do you think that histories, no matter from what country, are being either altered or manipulated because of a certain proof, because of certain power that makes some people, certain people should not be leader, for example, that certain leader A shouldn't be a leader because of certain proof, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I've learned is that like history is absolutely flexible depending on who's in power and what narrative they need to treat. And this is actually going back to China. This is my big thing is like I don't want to make any conclusions about China because I believe that the history and the cultural stuff that I'm being fed is probably not accurate. It's probably propagated by powers that have a stake in making me think that China's a bad, terrible place. I know of some facts. China's absolutely violating horrendous human rights against the Uyghurs, putting them in like camps. Like, I'm not glossing over the facts that I know about China, but like, I need a more holistic view, and I don't believe I can get it by consuming Western media and listening to geopolitical bluster from my government. Um, so that would be the number one that I think is like history being controlled in the name of power. Yeah, but I think it happens all the time. Okay.
Kermit.mp4 has one question.
Kermit.mp4, I love that name.
Kermit, you've been invited up.
Hello?
Hey there, Kermit. How's it going?
Good, how are you? I
Doing
just
great.
went downstairs, sorry about that. I came
Mm.
back just in time. Yes, I've been watching your videos quite a lot recently, like more than I was before. I've been a long time subscriber, but recently I've been watching them a lot more. I was
Awesome.
wondering, have you ever actually like used the information from your videos in like your day-to-day life?
So I use it every single day because I teach my children. Like I'll go home. So my son Henry knows literally everything about cold and hot water. He's like, I'm getting into hot water. My blood vessels are opening up and pumping blood out to my fingers and toes. Like he gets it. And so I often will teach the kids. In terms of actually using it, I'll use it in conversation all the time. Like I'll be like in an interesting conversation with somebody and I'll sort of be like, "Oh, and actually Hawaii was like completely overthrown by the US government because of these missionary banana farmers." I'll have these little nuggets that I can like toss out. In terms of like usefulness, um I mean, telescopes. I can use telescopes now. But yeah, this is a lot of like thinking about the world and having a better understanding of the world. And then I use it when I go speak. Like I'll go speak sometimes at conferences and stuff, and like all of my research and understanding about the world comes in handy in those settings, I would say. I think we have time for two more questions, guys. So let's do a couple more, and then I'm gonna have to wind down. I have a meeting in 2 minutes.
All right, Charles the Lion has been invited up. And on deck
Charles
is
the Lion.
Blazy01. I'm going to invite you up, but let's wait until Charles is done to come up.
Hello?
Hey Charles the Lion, how's it going?
Sorry, I nearly didn't because I had to quickly do something. My question is, how do you think social media has affected, since the early 2000s, everyone's everyday life, like how we need likes somewhat?
Yeah. That's a great question. Social media has absolutely affected information, how we consume information, and we can have more of it, but now people can create fake information and it can spread so quickly. I think it's also created a certain addiction to these stimulating attention machines called phones that I experience all the time. It's like I want to go scroll. Like scrolling is like this respite from my experience often to sort of numb. And I think it's really dangerous. I'm not going to be the naysayer or the decrier of like, it's the world is going to shit because of social media like that. People have been saying that forever. I'm not going to fall into that trap, but I do believe there are serious ramifications to how people consume information and how they're able to gather virtually. So yeah, we can all gather here and have this cool conversation about journalism and whatever, but people are doing the same thing about freaking flat earth and like how NASA is controlling our minds. It's like that's not good. Like that's not good that they can all just be in this echo chamber and listen to each other. So yeah, that those are some thoughts on the effect of social media.
Hey, Blazy01.
Blazy01, let's hear it. Last question. I think you're
Blazy, you there?
on, but I can't hear you.
Okay,
Maybe the mic
Blazy.
is. Okay, let's get sorry, Flazy, we're gonna have to do one more. Let's get one other
Okay.
person up, and then I gotta skedaddle.
Johnny, I'm going to ask you a question that will answer so many questions. A lot of people are asking if you can make a video about a specific subject. So my question for you is their specific subject. My question for you is, will there be a place where people that watch your channel can submit video ideas?
Great question. Yes, there absolutely will be. I'm building a website right now that has a hub for story ideas. Because I get pitched all the time, and I want to have one central place where all your story ideas can come in. So the website will be up soon. I'll post it on the community tab. I'll mention it on Instagram, whatever. And yeah, I will absolutely be able to. You guys will be able to put whatever tip, lead, story idea you have, and I will answer it the best I can in a video. Yeah, so thank you all for joining. This has been really fun to hear real people talk to me. I spend my life looking at a screen and not actually interacting with all of you. So it's really cool that you're here. Thank you for joining, and hopefully we'll do this again soon. And I'll see you guys on the channel in the near future. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you soon.